Hey everyone, it's Harry, your host. Today, we're breaking down one of the most talked about money topics circulating online right now, the so-called Trump $2,000 stimulus. What it actually means, where the idea came from, what is real, what is misunderstood, and how to know whether you should realistically expect any money at all. Because a lot of people are seeing headlines, social media posts, and videos claiming checks are already approved or on the way. And that simply is not true. So let's slow this down and walk through everything clearly and honestly from start to finish, so you leave this video informed instead of confused or misled. The phrase Trump $2,000 stimulus refers to a proposal that has been discussed publicly by Donald Trump and some allies, not an active government program, not a law, and not a payment currently being sent out. And that distinction matters more than anything else in this conversation. The idea centers on what has been described as a tariff dividend, meaning money collected by the federal government through tariffs on imported goods would theoretically be returned to American households in the form of a one-time payment, potentially around $2,000 per person or per household, depending on how legislation might be written. And this is very different from the CO-era stimulus checks that many people remember, which were funded through emergency spending bills passed by Congress during a national crisis. In this case, there is no emergency bill, no signed law, no IRS guidance, and no official payment schedule, which is why any claim that you can check your eligibility right now or apply for this money is misleading at best and a scam at worst. The proposal gained traction because it sounds familiar and appealing, especially during a time when inflation, housing costs, groceries, and everyday expenses continue to strain household budgets. And the idea of a direct payment feels like immediate relief. But government payments do not happen just because a politician mentions them. They require a full legislative process that includes drafting a bill, debating it in Congress, passing it in both the House and Senate, and then signing it into law, followed by detailed implementation by federal agencies like the Treasury Department and the IRS. None of those steps have occurred for a $2,000 tariff-based stimulus payment, and that's the reality that often gets buried under click-driven headlines. Another important piece to understand is that tariffs themselves are not free money. They are taxes paid by companies importing goods, and those costs are often passed on to consumers through higher prices, which means any plan to redistribute tariff revenue involves economic trade-offs that lawmakers would have to weigh carefully, including how much money is actually available, who would receive it, and whether it would meaningfully offset the higher costs tariffs can create in the first place. Supporters of the idea argue that returning tariff revenue directly to Americans would help households and make trade policy more politically acceptable, while critics argue that it oversimplifies how tariffs work and could worsen inflation or distort markets. And these debates are exactly why such proposals tend to move slowly, if they move at all. When people ask whether they qualify for the Trump $2,000 stimulus, the honest answer is that no one qualifies for something that does not legally exist yet, and there are no official criteria, income limits, or eligibility rules because nothing has been passed. But based on past stimulus programs and comments made in interviews, any future version would likely include income thresholds designed to target low and middle-income households, potentially excluding high earners. And it might use prior year tax filings to determine eligibility, similar to how previous stimulus checks were distributed. That said, those are educated guesses, not promises. And until a bill is written and approved, even those assumptions could change dramatically. It's also important to address the timeline, because many posts claim payments are coming soon, next month, or by the end of the year. Yet, there is no official timeline because there is no active legislation. And even if a bill were introduced tomorrow, the process of passing it and setting up payments would likely take months, not weeks, making any near-term payout extremely unlikely. This gap between political messaging and legislative reality is where misinformation thrives, and scammers exploit that confusion by creating fake websites, emails, and text messages claiming to help people claim or check their $2,000 payment, often asking for social security numbers, bank details, or upfront fees, which is why it's critical to remember that the IRS never asks for personal information through unsolicited messages and never charges fees to receive government benefits. Looking back at past stimulus programs can help put things in perspective because during the co-pandemic, stimulus checks were authorized only after Congress passed massive relief bills. And even then, payments were delayed, eligibility rules were complex, and millions of people experienced confusion, errors, or long waits. And those programs were launched during an officially declared emergency with bipartisan urgency, something that does not exist in the current situation. That historical context makes it even less likely that a new $2,000 payment would quietly appear without months of public debate, official announcements, and IRS instructions. Another layer to this story is the political environment itself, because stimulus-style payments are inherently controversial, often framed as economic relief by supporters and as government handouts by critics. And whether such a proposal advances depends heavily on who controls Congress, broader budget priorities, and the state of the economy at the time. Meaning, even strong rhetoric does not guarantee action. It's also worth noting that even if a tariff dividend concept were approved, the amount might not be exactly $2,000. It could be lower, phased, limited to certain households, or structured as a tax credit rather than a direct check, all of which would affect who benefits and how quickly. This is why responsible coverage focuses on what has actually been enacted rather than what has been suggested. Because conflating the two leads to false expectations and financial planning mistakes, such as people delaying bills or taking on debt, assuming money is coming that may never arrive. For viewers trying to stay financially safe, the smartest approach right now is to treat the Trump $2,000 stimulus as a political proposal and nothing more. Follow official government sources like the IRS and Treasury Department for real updates and ignore anyone claiming inside access, guaranteed eligibility, or early signups. If legislation ever moves forward, it will be covered widely by mainstream news outlets, accompanied by clear government announcements and supported by official IRS tools, not links shared in comment sections or private messages. Until then, the best thing you can do is focus on confirmed financial options that are actually available, such as existing tax credits, state-level relief programs, or budgeting strategies that don't rely on speculative payments. It's completely understandable why people are hopeful because direct payments have helped many families in the past. But hope should be grounded in facts, not headlines designed to generate clicks or political excitement. The bottom line is simple. Even if the conversation around it is loud and confusing, there is no approved Trump $2,000 stimulus check, no current eligibility to check, no application to fill out, and no money being sent at this time. And anyone telling you otherwise is either mistaken or intentionally misleading you. Staying informed, skeptical of sensational claims, and focused on verified information is the best way to protect yourself financially and emotionally as these discussions continue to circulate. As always, if and when something real changes, it will come with official documentation, clear rules, and widespread confirmation. And until that day, clarity and caution matter more than hype.